We're getting closer to the start of the SuperCoach season for 2025. Welcome back to the Phantom's Lair. This is the Phantom speaking. We are here again, my friends in SuperCoach, to talk about defenders for 2025. We've knocked over midfielders and our deep dive into the positions for SuperCoach in 2025. Our friends over in Melbourne took care of the rucks. We're talking about defenders today, and of course, Code Sports YouTube to look back at all of that and watch it if you're listening at home, because of course, get this Spotify, Apple, and wherever you get your podcast. My very good friends in SuperCoach, I should say, 3 of us here today. Another big omission, but importantly, 5 names are here.
I am. Thank you for having me.
And just drop me a bit of support. Now, we do like our fans and listeners to get in, and viewers to get into the show. Been following some comments on YouTube. Get there and let us know what you think now. Let us know what you think of 5 names. Dossie over there. 5 names to drum a bit of support. Now, firstly, someone suggests you should give Hipster left, right, good night. I mean, how he treated you.
Yeah, not the first time someone said that.
Then he was no-show the week later. So
that's 15 love. Yep. And I think it's 30 love now.
30 love. So
2 aces.
The left, right, good night could have happened. We haven't seen him or spoken to him since.
He actually might be scared.
He might be. So I've seen your right hook. Not too bad, really. On a late night out.
Inspiration from the UFC on the weekend, was it?
Yes. Now that is the chief of the show, Dossie Phantom Jr. Got chief. 5 names, just quickly before we throw it to him.
Yeah.
Kansas City Chiefs obviously lost the Super Bowl on Monday.
Yeah.
Aptly, the morning of the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Dossie was going for his morning coffee across the road.
Yep.
Got chiefed.
What are you after there, Chief?
He hasn't been the same since.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
It hurt the soul.
Yeah, I mean, you look broken.
The
I'm
Kansas
a broken
City
man.
Chief.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. But don't appreciate the Chief, the big fellas, the superstars.
Muscles.
Jeez, it could be champ next.
Muscles.
What happened? What
You've
happened?
heard of Muscle, haven't you?
There's
as well?
no really coming back from it.
Yeah, what happened? What will happen if you get called muscles next time?
I'll take that though. A bit of a compliment.
Is
Been
it
working
true?
on the pipes.
Well, 5 names. Our little birdie told us, speaking of muscles, might have hurt more than a muscle this pre-season, Junior.
Yeah. What do you say? Tearing up the track one week.
Tearing up the back the
could
next.
be a risk for the start of the season. May not even play this year.
Well, I'm just taking inspiration from all the AFL players at the moment, getting injured constantly week to week. So, yeah, did the hammy, bit of tendonitis. That was off Achilles tendonitis before that as well. Then doing a bit of rehab on the string in the gym, and bang goes the back. So, poor form, though. Didn't lock in the core. Always locking the core on those dead spots.
Do you know what they're saying? The reason why all the players are getting injuries because they're not training enough, taking too much of a break. So,
well, I remember us talking about Isaac Cumming, who's not going to feature on this show, but we did speak about him a couple of pods ago. You said he was training too hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and that's why he has consistently got those injuries. I think it does apply to me as well. Just training too hard.
Might be time to give it up, Dossie. Coaching pretend players is a full-time job. That's what we do in SuperCoach. So just focus on what matters, which is SuperCoach. Today's defenders. Let's start at the top. You speak of injuries. The defence has been hit. Some big names are down and maybe out of the conversation for our starting teams.
Yeah, well, we can start with Nick Newman. Really unfortunate news for him. I mean, he would have been a point of difference. Obviously not a highly owned player, but yeah, sadly going down with the ACL injury. So obviously don't pick Nick Newman, but sad news for him. All the best in his recovery. But then we've had a bunch of other injuries come through multiple positions, but the key ones today to focus on in defence, we've had Sam Flanders come out. He was very highly owned early days. I think that's dropped off a little bit since this news, but dealing with a back injury. So he's on a managed program there. So he's probably the big one, fans.
Yep, Damien Hardwick spoke this week or the end of last week, and he's hopeful that Flanders will be right to go, but also, which we don't like to hear coaches say, they want to get him right. So they're going to rush him in for round 1 for opening round. Not sure, and if Damien Hardwick comes out and says we want to get him ready for the big chunk of the year, it's a long season. It's not what we want to hear. So still in my team at the moment, haven't moved him out yet, but I'm not liking what I'm hearing. Can we, if he plays in opening round or doesn't play in opening round and just gets picked for round 1, the start of SuperCoach, can you pick him at that price off a modified Dossie-like pre-season?
Nah, not if he's not if he doesn't play round 0, because you're not going to get any price change. You're not getting any benefit out of that whatsoever if he just comes in, because he's got the round 2 bye. So I think you just wave that goodbye. But to your point, if he plays opening round, does exactly what you want him to do, gets a 120, gets a 130, then he's got West Coast in round 1 in your first week of SuperCoach. I mean, if he's looking fine, I think it's good that we get to see him in opening round, because you can make that informed decision.
The round 2 bye might hurt. They might just say, all right, start your season in round 3.
Yeah.
Depends how he's going. Big watch.
Just watch that one in pre-season, but yeah, at least we get the opening round to decide that, I think. Another player that's been a very popular pick early days as well, given that he finished the end of last season really strong, Sim, Jack Sinclair.
Yes, another to cop a little bit of an injury.
Yeah, did a little bit of a hammy, but latest news there is he's expected to be available for their season opener against Adelaide. So if that news is accurate, and if they, we'll see if he's named or not. But would you still be interested in Jack Sinclair, given he is, coming off this hamstring?
I'm actually not interested in him because I'm on the Naz train, Wayne Millerer. So I'm going that instead of Sinclair. I'm in love with what I've seen from Naz so far this preseason. I think David King actually said he was tearing it up in there. So and it's always interesting seeing his notes when he goes out to clubs. When he's watching preseason. So I'm going that. But yeah, I think Sinclair's one just to keep monitoring. If you really do like him, because he could go in the midfield. They do. That's what we're kind of thinking about. So, but I think. If he's playing in the preseason games and he's looking good, you can pick him.
He holds the chair well now, Dossie. 5 names. Look at him. He's just come on leaps and bounds. Doesn't need hipster there next to him. No wonder he's getting the fans. But Jack Sinclair, very much I'll wait and see what happens in the practice games. But I just saw your facial expressions there. You can see them on Code Sports YouTube if you're only listening in your earbuds right now. But Dossie's eyebrows were raised there when 5 names mentioned Nazai Wanganeen Miller. Your pod, apparently. Big pod. You got a lot of pods this preseason. You actually made the call when Jack Sinclair went down. Your boys, which you've got, if you're now long-time Lair listeners will know that Hipster had a boy for each day, a SuperCoach boy for each day. You're getting close because apparently Nazai Wanganeen Miller, your pod. Is he in your team?
Yeah, he is. D1. At the moment, maybe D2. I'd have to check if I've gone back on my Sheezel word or not at this stage. But yeah, it was after the Sinclair news that I was even more keen, but I was keen prior to the Sinclair news as well. Just as you said, Sim, from what we've heard, he's the guy, he's the go-to man in defence. Look, they've also lost they've lost a distributor that played a lot of games from last year despite getting completely dropped from the AFL system in Riley Bonner. He was there, he was helping distribute early in the season and he was there for most of the season. So, taking him away, he was looping around the back for handball receives as well. So, without him involved, I think there's plenty of opportunity. And if Sinclair does move into that midfield as well, which I think he'll probably just do similar to what he's always done, and he'll flick in and out based on what they need. But, it's basically Sinclair and Nas and maybe another man that I'm also a big fan of in the cheap bracket. But should we just get into starting to talk about defenders and maybe talk about these guys as we go?
Well, you mentioned Harry Sheezel.
Yep.
5 names. Is he in your team?
Yep. Locked in. Too. I had him before ahead of Flanders.
635K. It's expensive.
It is a lot, but
54% owned as well. So you're kind of going against the competition if you go against him. Now, I'll just say my argument because I think I've just sort of been going back and forth between whether I do actually want to back in the highly priced Sheezel. And it was just based on the fact that last season I didn't own him at the start of the season and it absolutely killed me. But that was when he wasn't playing in the midfield forward role that we kind of think he will be playing in now. He's playing in that halfback distributor role, which is just absolute juice for North Melbourne over the past few years. And that's when he really killed us. Then he moved into a mid-forward role, still was really fantastic at scoring. But is he going to average the 116 or is he going to, am I going to get an opportunity to pick him up a little bit cheaper in that defensive department? Whereas I think with some of the other players in other positions, like maybe someone like a Bont, if I'm paying up premium price, I think is less likely that I'm going to be able to pick him up sort of waiting. So that's my thinking on Sheezel, but I'm still not opposed to starting him because on previous pods I've said, how close does the next best defender get? If he's going to have average 110, how close are we going to get?
It's for fair thought, fair argument. You can look at it the other way though. Second-year player, we'll just chuck him in the midfield, see how he goes against the best players in the competition. Finish the year in a big way. We know he was a midfielder forward as a junior. Some big scores in the Coach League in his draft year. 138, 160, 105, 122 to finish last year's AFL season in that new role. He's only a kid still, third year. I think he can keep that line in any role.
Yep.
For me. But some very good points there. You can look at it both ways. Again, I think you're right though. You're not going to maybe be really hurt.
As much as
not
we
going
were
to get away
last
from
year,
you.
especially because he was a bit cheaper last year as well, and he was just killing you every week in, week out last year. Look, he could come out firing again this year, which, I mean, if we've seen pictures of him this preseason, it looks like he's absolutely...
Yeah, you see some of the footage, him just absolutely dominating their centre bounces.
Yeah, I think 54% of the competition, I might have to turn back on that and back him in. The second highest, I'm just looking at sort of the Uber premium bracket here. We talked about him off the top of the show, Jack Sinclair. He's 23% owned. I think we talked enough about him, but fans, I know you owned him towards the back end of last year off a certain recommendation by me, I might say, but he was a fantastic player to dominate the back half of the season, especially he started last year also off a bit of a limited preseason, slow start, but came home firing.
He did. Yep, I know you want to bring this up because you did tip me into Jack Sinclair late in the season.
Didn't pick him up myself though.
But some big numbers. Priced at 110. I think the key with him here, we always look for value in SuperCoach. Priced at 110, average 120 in his final 11 games last season. Big run home after the bye. And I agree. I think you float around and do what he likes again this season. So can definitely outdo that 110-point average for mine in my team.
Now, Sim, the third most owned player in this premium bracket sort of maybe surprised me a little bit, not due to his talent, but due to his early bye round, given that the Geelong Cats play opening round and then they've got, it's that round 3 bye, I believe. So the tricky one where you've got, if you're starting with a Bailey Smith and you're starting with any of the Brisbane players like a Levi or a Will Ashcroft, you've got a few players on that early buy, and it's Max Holmes, 533,000. He is nearly 20% owned by the competition.
Wow.
Based on his form last year and obviously just some natural progression, thinking he's going to take his game to the next level.
Well, he's going to play more midfield, you'd imagine. So I think he's still going to push the top seats.
Yeah.
Like he definitely can. He might lose a half-back role where he's going to get that cheap stuff, but you're going to get the trade-off of him playing more midfield. We know he's a gun. Like, he's an absolute gun. It's going to be for Geelong, him and Bailey Smith probably rolling through midfield a lot. So it'll be, it's one that I like. I like Matt Holmes. I think he's got a really good game. Like, just depends on what's going to look like more of his midfield time, you'd imagine.
Yeah, it's just that bye round too, fans.
Not good.
No, I mean, that's got the Sydney bye as well. So if you're starting a Callum Mills, if you're starting a Matty Roberts, you just can't have too many of these players. But if you do balance it out, again, I agree. Like, he's a fantastic option, but nearly 20% owned does surprise me to some extent.
Kiddy Coleman out of the conversation. I'm sure we'll touch on that when we get down the list, but that is a mid-pricer that we all locked in if he was going to play, won't now feature.
Yeah, should have mentioned him in the injury report at the top.
So scratch him off your starting list, but definitely an in-season option to keep your eye on. Where are we going next? Are we sleeping on one guy? I want to ask 5 names. I'm going to hijack Chiefs run sheet here, 5 names, but Dan Houston, are we sleeping on him a little bit? Over at Collingwood, the way Collingwood use MCG, bigger ground, and we know he's going to be the distributor there across half-back. Can we see a lift in his game? We know ceiling-wise is massive anyway in terms of SuperCoach.
Collingwood, their game doesn't really, translate a lot to high scores for defenders. Like guys like Houston, obviously Dacos just kills it. But yeah, I think Houston has the potential to go big. We've seen him go big at Port, but I think with the change, you just maybe want to wait and see his role, see how he's going to go with Collingwood. Yeah, I really like him as a player. I've had him plenty of years. What he can do is damaging, but yeah, just maybe wait and see the role there, how it's going to impact his scoring.
The interesting thing there, you can pick him for round one because he has the suspension coming over, but I believe after opening round that'll be wiped, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, by round one he's going to be okay. I know some people are like, oh, he's still suspended, but I think after opening round, like that's the last game of his suspension carried over from last year from the Isaac Rankin hit. So he is an option to pick. He also, just mentioning that nasty bye round, Collingwood also share that bye round. So it's Geelong, Sydney, Collingwood and Brisbane coming up in round 3. So you literally get 2 games out of all these players on the SuperCoach schedule because SuperCoach doesn't start till round 1. You get 2 games out of them. And then so it's just balancing these guys. If you're starting a Holmes, if you're starting a Mills and a Houston, you can't really start all these guys, can you?
Would have been good to see him in opening round.
Yeah.
To back up what Five Names said, how he fits in exactly and into their game plan. We know how good he is, but interesting one.
Another popular player, 10%, just in this premium bracket. We'll get into some of those bargains that I know people are
plenty of bargains
very keen on in the defensive line, but maybe just these 3 premiums I'll wrap in a bundle here. We got Lachie Whitfield, 10% owned, Luke Ryan, just under 9%, and then Tom Stewart, under 8%. So people preferring Maxi Holmes over the tried and true Tommy Stewart for the Cats, but also Luke Ryan, a guy that dominated early last season and was another guy, along with Sheezel, that if you didn't own him, you were falling behind the pack.
We ride off blokes quickly, but I think Five Names is on.
But
Luke Ryan in your team?
No.
No,
I had him as a burn.
Oh, the Birdman.
The Birdman, home as that. No,
did see a Luke Ryan somewhere.
Yeah, I think all 3 of them can score really well, but all 3 of them have red flags.
Oh,
Whitfield and Tommy Stewart, their early buys.
Yeah.
Whitfield, it's better. Like Whitfield, we know can score.
He was a guy, as I said, the other 2, if you didn't own Luke Ryan to start, so if you didn't own Lachie Whitfield towards the end of the year, you were in trouble. So he finished hot. Yeah,
and the other thing with Luke Ryan, as I've said, Fremantle, when they actually did decide to go a bit quicker and not chip the ball around, his scores went down. And so you're kind of imagining that they're going to try and do the same and play faster. How's that going to impact him? That's my question with Luke Ryan.
A couple of questions, and we asked for call-outs. On X at the Phantom SC, there was one dossy about Luke Ryan and what Freo will do this year. So, Justin Longmuir called him out indirectly in the media. Blokes looking for kicks, which is what we love about Luke Ryan.
Yeah.
So, again, I can't see them going away from the faster game like Five Names said. That did make them look a bit better. So, we did write them off quickly, but over 600K, I think I'll be waiting to have a look too. So, I don't mind the less than 10% for Luke Ryan.
Yep. Let's get into some of the mid prices and cheapies bracket. I'll kind of just go by ownership percentage here and we can work through them. But Callum Mills, he's highly owned. He's close to 60% owned. He comes in at $357,000. Word on the street, up at Sydney. He's playing in that midfield role. I know in Match Sim recently he was floating between midfield back like he always does, but priced at that, $350K sim.
Absolute lock. I think we forget with Callum Mills, especially at times, he's one of those guys, especially in a SuperCoach fantasy setting, when he's absolutely on, he can score by winning his own ball. I think we forget. I think you can't. Some people might forget how good of a scorer he actually is.
Yeah, especially as a midfielder when he's in and under. And let's not forget, this guy's the captain. Yeah, this guy's the captain of the club. I feel like he does owe him one for what happened sort of last year with the preseason injury. I think that was last preseason, wasn't it? Doing the shoulder in a wrestling scenario. I think it was in the Mad Monday sort of situation. So I feel like he does owe him one. They obviously he wasn't fully fit and firing for that grand final harsh defeat as well. I think he'll be out to prove a point this year, and at 350k, yeah, I agree.
Wasn't alone grand final day, but our man Lockie McCurdy up in Sydney was been at across all the Swans match sim and training over the past couple of months. You said he has been in the midfield, but then last week again across the ground, defence and midfield, even across half forward. Dean Cox has said though, stated and declared this guy's an All-Australian midfielder. He's going to be playing in midfield. But we know he's such a good one-on-one defender. So we know Dean Cox knows he can, if someone's got off the chain, he can put Callum Mills on in. The captain's going to take one for the team. But again, the price probably doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I do like the fresh set of eyes from Cox as well, just saying, hopefully he does move back into that midfield role. But yeah, we'll see. He's got a bit of, that Jordan Dawson, I guess, about him where you can put him in different roles and he'll thrive wherever he plays. But
let's stay on Sydney.
Okay, your man.
Matty Roberts, the other conversation the other guy, a part of the mid-price conversation up in Sydney, 434, bit more expensive. Finished the year with a bang. We've spoken about him a lot on this show. Average 111 points per game in the final 6 home and away matches. He became one of their go-to men out of defence. Reliable kick, clean hands. They look to him every time. 68 kick-ins, played on with all of them, which we love. Second only to Nick Blakey at the Swans. We know he's their main man in terms of run. Kicking efficiency for Matt Roberts, 84.8%, the 4th highest of any player in the competition to have 12 or more kicks per game. So breakout year in terms of going to that next level in SuperCoach, 3 figures, I think, on the cards. The question is, though, with that early buy 5 names, can you pick Mills and Roberts? And if you have to choose, you couldn't pick Roberts over Mills, could you, at the price? Is that flirting with danger?
I think so. I think you can pick them, but you could only have those. You wouldn't be able to have any other players in that buy.
Yep. Coleman out now.
Yeah, Coleman out now.
Makes it a little bit easier.
Makes it a little bit easier. You can only probably have those 2. Yeah, and I think just Mills' value is too tempting to pass up, really.
That's it. It's the hardest thing because I think the first thing I did when I opened SuperCoach Team Picker this year was Matt Roberts in, Callum Mills in. And then you start thinking about the buy structure, you start thinking about all these things as the season goes on and you worry about it. But do we just take advice from the winner of SuperCoach last year? He didn't worry too much about his buy structure. Like he was just like, pick the players with value. Are we just overthinking that a little bit? As you said, you don't want to go overboard with all these players. Like maybe you just don't pick, say, Dan Houston, or you don't pick a Max Holmes, but maybe you can have a couple of these guys. You just can't go too overboard.
I've been going on about it as well, banging on about that. We are overthinking the buys. It's just that week with 4 teams.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the other early buys. I'm not. Just the 4 teams. You can't load up too much. So, again, 5 names mentioned. It might depend who you've got elsewhere. We know we've got flex, best 18 scoring and flex this season. So, we do have more cover there for those early buys. Just look at your team as a whole and check out that balance for that round 3. Now,
we've kind of skipped over it a couple of times. I'll just mention as well, Kiddy Coleman, he's still close to 30% owned, so jump in and flick him out. Unfortunately, the latest news on him, the Brisbane injury update, which was 3 days ago, February 8, TBC on the injury report.
Don't want to see that.
The exact wording from Brisbane Lions, thelions.com.au, was due to Coleman experiencing some swelling as his training load increased. He will be given some time off running to allow his knee to settle before transitioning back to training. So, that's early February. You'd think it's going to take him a little bit of time. Yep. So, especially given they just won the flag, they're going to give him plenty of time to come back cherry ripe.
Yep.
I'll get into some other players in this mid-price bracket that are tempting and, under 10% owned here, but a Jaden Shaw and a Colby McKirch are 2 players just under 10% owned. So there's getting some interest from coaches.
I've got Jaden Shaw.
Pew pew.
I'm
5 names.
interested in both.
I know you have.
Yeah.
I think I've got both.
His man this year.
Love Jaden Shaw as an option. I think bounce back years on. I mean, someone's got to take the kids.
No one else.
Someone's got to take the kids down to Richmond.
Give me down there plenty.
Yeah, give me down there plenty. McKirch is an interesting one. I know the hipster likes him, and you can see why. Yeah, I know who. You can see why people would like McKercher because he is kind of slated to what we think will happen. He will go in that role that Sheezel played before, which, as we know, people store points in that. But the big risk is, does he play wing?
Does his role change? Yeah. Did he play anywhere bar that role? Because that was the juiciest role for him. And he had a high average last year. What, an 88 average for the season? So he's got to, to be able to improve on that already solid average for a defender. And probably, what would you want out of it, fans? Like, close to 100, really.
Yeah, I've my breakout predictions from 88 to 103 is what I've got him at.
Okay, that's enough.
I'm warming to get him into my team. George Wardlow's gone out. That might affect how many midfield minutes he does get, and he might get more because of it. Do they need? But like we had this conversation with Sheezel before, like people were worrying about last year. Geez, can this guy score well in the midfield? This guy, like Sheezel, is a gun.
Yeah,
came into North Melbourne's setup after dominating as a junior, average 150 points at National Under 18 Carnival as a midfielder, 144 in the Coates League as a midfielder. It's not like he doesn't know how to play the midfield. So I think even if he does get a few more mid-minutes, floats back a little bit, I don't mind him. 476, some value there.
Yeah, the other thing to watch out, Caleb Daniels probably going to take the kick-ins for them, but if there's enough to show that McKercher is going to play that kind of real scoring-friendly half-back role, then it's worth a strong look.
And one other thing on Jaden Short, going back to him, Daniel Rioli out of the side is the biggest thing for me. Like, as you said, who's going to take the kicks back there? But you also add the fact that they've now lost one of their main distributors back there. So he could go back to... He's gone 90 plus so many times in his career.
And they've also lost Liam Baker as well, who we do know would go behind the ball sometimes and set up attacks from there.
Yeah.
Now, one guy we didn't mention quickly in our midfield show, you can go back and watch it now, Code Sports YouTube, and go find the podcast. But on North Melbourne, Dossie, we didn't mention him. Just quickly, Tommy Power. Looking good. Our man from here in SA.
If you listen to the Draft podcast, Drafted, we will have one for this Defender episode as well, Drafted.
Check that out.
On all platforms, this show. I was big on Tommy Power. He was my sleeper in drafts. I think you could pick him up late. But he's been talked about by Sheezel as well, by a few others. So, one to put. This is the Defender pod, though. Let's get back on track. Talk about some other cheapies. Just a couple more here. Now, we have a man that's been out to some Port and Adelaide trainings, of course, in 5 names.
All over it.
The journo down here, the only journo present in the room here. Well, not excluding fans, but Josh Sin.
Only one with some credibility anyway.
Josh Sin, yep.
Josh Sin, talk us through. There's 5% of coaches keen, 229K.
Yeah, he's got a decent price, and someone has to replace Houston. He's got when you think about it, you think he could be one of those guys to replace him. On yesterday when I was out there, Kane Farrell was the one who looked a little bit more impressive and more damaging off half-back for Port when they had their best forward line v best defenders. So that could maybe be a bit of a pod there. But yeah, Sin looks like he might be there round 1 at the moment, which is big for him given he's just been unlucky with his body. Yesterday he was playing on Willie Rioli, so more of a I don't know if it was a lockdown role, but more I was a bit more impressed with Kane Farrell, but I think Sin's one of the ones.
That's some breaking news. Was Kane Farrell back?
Kane Farrell's back.
Back in training?
Yeah, he's back in training.
That is breaking news.
What? No.
That's huge.
I reckon.
Heard it here first.
Yeah, heard it here first. Sin's one to watch. I think you got to really watch him closely in Port's 2 games, see what the role is. As the big question from Port is who's going to replace Houston. At the moment, I think Farrell's probably going to be the main guy to step up, I'd say. Ryan Burton's been training with the ones a lot in defence. So, I think it's still to be determined who's actually going to step up for Houston at the moment.
Interesting makeup. Their defence. You were actually out there too at Alban Oval last week, Dossie. You sort of said to me that, maybe Josh Carr might be the coach sooner rather than later, given what you saw in defence. We don't know what's going to happen.
Oh, well, all I saw was Rory Atkins racking up the pill back there, and also Hamish Hartlett. He was out of retirement. And he was, look, he's still got it. He could come back for tomorrow. But
the other thing, on Port, Brandon Thatcher, going to miss the start of the season. Sava Radulea might they don't know yet. He hurt his knee yesterday, so he's going to see a surgeon. So he might be out for the start of the season as well. That means probably Miles Bergman's going to be have to play tall. That can you have a lot of smaller guys running around that back line.
It's going to be a watch, though, isn't it, for who's going to be these cheapies at Port that we can pick up? Because it might be a sin. Maybe it's a Ratkins.
I don't. Not Ratkins.
Not Ratkins. Oh, Dylan Williams was the other one.
Yeah, I think
he actually looked good at this.
I think he's gone. I haven't seen him in the strongest defence for a while, so I reckon he's probably
Gary Sample Supercoach.
Yeah, Sample Supercoach.
All right. I don't want to linger here too much longer, but I got to mention my boy. You mentioned I've got one for each day, just like Hipster, but Aria Shaw, mate.
I was waiting for someone to bring him up.
I've been on this early. There's a clip out there on there very early. I think, early Jan it might have been. Ari Shawmaker, he's going to make an impact this year at 270K. I'm all aboard.
That's like 1K more than Kiddy. Isn't that just the easiest trade?
If you need a pivot, look, he's 3% owned at the moment.
That's the easiest pivot ever.
Yeah, if you just want a direct swap, he doesn't have an early buy either. He's got one of the best buys in the comp if he lasts that long. I think it's around 13. It's only them and Fremantle that are on that buy. So if he does, if he manages to have that role for a long time, I'm just looking at the same things that I'm looking at for Naz and for Sinclair. No Riley Bonner, no Josh Battle.
Yeah, that's going to help out Shawmaker's a lot.
Shawmaker's the battle role because he's 194 centimetres, I think. So it's a like for like. And, I mean, fair bit less defensive fresh from the big fella, but look, he loves a kick.
He's got a big old kick on him.
He's basically Luke Ryan with a little bit less defence.
If Ross didn't play Riley Bonner, we know Riley Bonner was just an attacking player and Ross Lyons stuck with him for a lot last year. So sort of in the past, we might have had questions. Does Shawmaker defend enough for Ross? But in the game plan, maybe he does.
Yeah, and what Dougal Howard's out as well. So they've just got gaps in that defense. I think he plays by default. So regardless, I'm a big fan. Is there
boy by default?
Should we move on to some rookies, or there's just one other player I do like as
hang on, is this a person I had as a few last year?
Here we go. Another boy?
Bit of a point of difference. I currently don't have him in, so I can't claim him. Do you want to talk? If you had him, do you want to talk about him?
I don't know. Trent Rivers?
Yeah.
It's not your boy unless you pick him.
That's what I'm saying.
I picked him last year.
No, I had him last year. I said
Chief
Ari's my boy.
The Chief.
Yeah, okay, the Chief. Trent Rivers is tempting, isn't he? He's like he went in that midfield. Obviously, Oliver was doing bad. Petrarca was out, but he showed that he could score. And you imagine, like Melbourne have kind of spoken about that they're going to move some stuff around in their midfield. Caleb Wins doing a halfback.
Yeah, there was even talk of Ed Langdon moving on the inside from Jay Clark the other day.
Yeah, I know. Saw that. So surely Rivers is going to get some midfield time if that's the case.
Yep. I feel like it's probably going to be a case of Petrarca easing back. Like he's had that major contact injury. You'd think he starts as a forward, or at least not a pure midfielder like he has been, but who knows what they've got planned. Also in that piece by Jay Clark mentioned Oliver sort of working his way back. That's Goodwin's, some of Goodwin's quotes there.
Bit of concern.
But that, again, raises the question, maybe Rivers gets a bit more time, especially to start the season. And at 460K might be enough to get you off to a really strong start. But anyway, he's very much a point of difference. Shooting from the hip.
Good yarn. Code Sports' own, Jay Clark.
Now let's talk about rookies in the defensive line because I think this is actually tougher than people are locking in at the moment. People are just locking in these players that I don't know what their job security is actually going to be like to start the season. Obviously, we'll know more as the season comes closer, but Bo Allan, my man.
Your man.
From the Weagles, 136K, 66% owned. I haven't heard anything.
No, that's a big ownership.
I haven't heard anything about Bo since going over there. I don't know if they're just keeping it quiet, but look, I'm going to have to hear a lot more than diddly squat to be locking him in at 66% owned. Wasn't a massive averaging player in the waffle either. I think from memory it was only in the 50s. Obviously against men though, so that's impressive as a 17, 18-year-old. But look, I don't think he's necessarily the lock people think. Maybe he is.
Yeah.
Jagger Smith though. Saad El-Hawlii as well. a lot of track watchers.
Is he actually going to play?
Well, a lot of the
That's
Bombers fans aren't sure. That's the thing that we're seeing on Twitter. Obviously, it's just Twitter. It's just Twitter talk. But Saad El-Hawlii, is he locked in? I don't know. The 58% owned suggest he is.
I don't think he's locked in. He's ready to go and play. It's just how he lines up. He'll get a go in the practice matches. Hopefully, we need him to force Brad Scott's hand.
All I'm just saying is, I know these, as we all do, we're just locking in players that have been talked about in the preseason. I'm just saying, be wary because 119k for Saad El-Hawlii, 136k for Bo Allan. You might just need a little bit more money, wiggle room. If you've got $0 in the bank on your team, you might be shuffling a bit late if you don't have a bit of options there. Now, another player we shall see here is...
I've got one. I think he's on the list. Rookie Bible.
Yeah.
Of course, you can read that now. Codesports.com.au and all News Corp mastheads. Myself and Dan Batten will be adding to it soon. It is your go-to place, 5 names for all things rookies. But we added James Leake into the last instalment. 119k arrived at the Giants as a versatile utility from 5 names, his neck of the woods down in Tassie. Could play at either end. 188 centimetres. Late last year, though, played on ball in the VFL, averaged 27 touches, 13 contested possessions, 7 tackles, 5 clearances, 113 SuperCoach points. It's also now been Lockie McCurdy, our man, again up in Sydney. Been watching the match and been involved in that midfield mix, been going head-to-head with Tom Green. If he can break in and actually play in that midfield, we know James Peatling's not there. He was a defensive-minded midfielder, did tag a little bit. Could Leake be that replacement?
Isaac Cumming also not there.
Yep.
There's spots that have opened up in the Giants team.
Yep. And he did it in the VFL, played that role. Good size. Yeah. On to watching the practice matches.
No Perryman as well. I mean, not that he played a heap of the last couple of years, but
almost
plenty of spots.
But almost the big thing with him is he'll be playing.
Yeah.
Which we don't know about the other guys.
Yeah. Well, he is 15% owned, so people are on board. There's a couple more rookies. Toby Travalia from the Saints, nearly 56% owned. We at least have heard a little bit that he is, training pretty well, and we've also seen at St Kilda that they've already had some injuries, so he's probably likely to get an early sort of gig, you'd expect, or at least just we can keep an eye out on that one.
Yeah, Ross threw Darcy Wilson in straight away last year as well, so could be a similar thing.
Zach Reed, another option, 119k.
Just needs to stay fit.
32% owned as well.
Bench lock if he's playing.
Bench lock, absolutely. I mean, he was in the round 1 team last year and got injured within 15 minutes. That's why he's 119k. But
so let's all do it together.
Yeah, can certainly
make a pact. We'll all just pick him if he's playing.
I'll be picking him if he's named.
If he's playing, if he's named, It's
a pact. Cool. Riley Bice. Now, Fance, I know you've got some words for this guy. Come on.
Well, just same as Saad El-Hawlii, mature age. Obviously not picking the mid-season draft like El-Hawlii, but Riley Bice picked up from the VFL by the Swans, ready to go. Super coach friendly game in terms of what he does behind the footy. Just need to see if he can get a game. The Swans do have a lot of options now down back. We know Tom McCartan's probably playing forward, but Aaron Francis has obviously been involved in a lot of their defensive setups. They do have a lot of names to go through there already. Is it going to take an injury for Bice to get in? Maybe. Hopefully, though, we do see him in the practice games coming up over the next couple of weeks. Because, again, if he's named, a bench slot, mature ager, we love them in SuperCoach.
One to just flag for people, Josh Gibcus, 14% owned. He's not going to be right to start the season.
Full stop? Or
I'm pretty sure I've read that. I will get confirmation, but did you want to go through any other players here?
No, Caleb Smith at the Tigers, another one that hopefully we do see in the practice game. 5 names all over Jaden Short because of the lack of players in defence, runners they've lost. Caleb Smith made his debut last year. Didn't get much of a go. Didn't have much of an impact, but is a dashing player. Can break the lines from half back, so they might need him, one to keep an eye on over the preseason.
Yeah, so he's been ruled out for the first few rounds of the season at least. That's the latest that I've seen from AFL as well. So key defender Josh Gibbs is ruled out of the early rounds of the season. Is the latest. So.
Don't start with him then.
Scratch him off. Big show, Chief. Good one.
Yeah, it was a big show. Did you have any listener requests that we didn't touch on? We touched on a lot of players, so don't want to rediscover what we've already talked about. But
at the Phantom SC, of course, if you want to get involved,
he needs the followers. We've mentioned this.
Yeah.
But I'm looking okay, healthy. About 5 times more than you.
Not quite the 5.
Well, Jesse Caldera, who is a long-time fan of the show, talks about, can we scrap the round 3 bye? All the defenders he wants seems to have it. We spoke about Tom Stewart, Max Holmes, Robertson Mills, Houston, and Harry Perryman. Now, Harry Perryman's come up in the conversation as well here on X. Can he do enough at Collingwood? I like him in the draft format. We did our rankings. They're online at codesports.com. Did our group consensus rankings. Had him as a bit of a sleeper, Harry Perryman.
What role do you think he plays? Because I think the midfield role has been flagged for Perryman.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm talking about. And that's why he kind of went there to play a bit more midfield rather than the wing that he had at GWS. So I think at least you got to look at him. I don't think it'd be real risky to start with him.
Yeah.
But then again, you do have practice games to have a look. But yeah, I mean, and
opening
round.
Yeah. So
you have those two. So it's a risk. Could work. But yeah, that bye's brutal, isn't it? That's a brutal old bye.
Shout out to our friend Maddie M, who's asked about Harry Sheezel playing forward. We discussed it, and also Jack Sinclair. Is that injury a worry? Probably not. Maddie, definitely a watch, but I've still got him in. Chili D, I'm really warming to Naz.
Yep.
Jumping on board.
Jump on the train.
Some Roberts calls, Trent Rivers, please. We've covered them. Marty Holden, Roberts, or De Koning.
Sam De Koning. Sammy De Koning we didn't talk about.
Now's your chance.
I had him in draft towards the end of last season. And yeah, when he was playing ruck, it was a smash play. He can score well. He's not obviously to the level of his brother, mainly because in the ruck department, mainly because I don't think he's played there until last season. And they pretty much threw him up against his brother for that 170 that Tommy put on his head. But Sam, with a full, if he has been training, which I think Dan Batten mentioned, he's been the Lair's friend, Dan Batten.
Rookie Bible
has
zone, Dan Batten.
He has been training a little bit with the ruck department there. So if he's playing ruck or at least chopping out in the ruck at 300, mid 300Ks, it's a dodgy price. And again, it's that
just a buy, isn't it? All the good defenders are that.
The thing I like about him is, though, we could pick him up like after his buy round if he's doing well. He'll have one price change, but I personally, with Sam, think he'll play a bit of both. I think he'll be, this is what I dealt with in my draft league last year. 1 week he's unfieldable because he's playing lockdown defender. The next week he's dominating in the ruck, and it's a roller coaster, which I think you can afford in draft formats, and he's probably a nice late bargain. In Classic, unless he's locked in, they might have Toby Conway 1 week. Yep. If he's healthy, they might have Reece Stanley just come in against a harder ruck, big-bodied matchup, and then Sam De Koning's just back getting you a 40. So I don't really like the pick.
No for me. Matty Cameron's mentioned Kane Farrell. Jay Meister's thrown one up. James Sicily, haven't talked about him a lot. I think
hate it.
Really?
Our friend, Peyton's team over there at the Herald Sun, which we've talked about his team a lot, so can't take it seriously until he gets the horny one in there. But I think he does have James Sicily. Obviously, some big inclusions in that defence. Josh Battle, Tom Barras.
Surely he plays forward.
Or at least might not start there or play there permanently. I wouldn't have thought that is the go. But Sam Mitchell knows he can. Mitch Lewis, obviously injured. He knows now he's got the cattle in defence.
What do you do if opening round, because Hawthorn do play opening round, what do you do? He's roaming free in defence 130.
Oh no, that's I was trying to say the only way this helps,
or swings forward late in the last quarter.
It could help him if he becomes like a rebounder again almost. Yeah.
Maybe he plays even more loose, but I don't think it still changes that. That happens in round 1. Doesn't mean it's going to happen in round 2 given what we're just discussing here. I don't think one game could, if you've got an issue with James Sicily's role right now, you're concerned. I don't think one game, we're not expecting him to line up at full forward every game.
No, look, I'm personally a fan of Sicily. I just think he'll be a guy I look to bring into my team when he's on a heater and I won't start with him just because starting team.
I think you've got to see how they.
Yeah, you got to see what they do.
And
like you said,
Battle and Barras actually impact him.
Yeah, and like you said, it's even in opening round if he doesn't swing forward, like it might happen the next week. It's every chance, but.
Yep. Here's one just to finish off here. Had to click on the show probable spam. How X just tries to filter out some spam.
Yeah. Yep.
Don't worry, it's not a hipster jar, which I thought it might have been. Clicked on it, hopefully to finish off with a gag, but it is Jimmy saying Ari Schoenmaker.
Oh yeah.
Is that a sign?
What a place to fit. Is that all he said?
Ari Schoenmakers with an S, maybe Elon just picked it up.
Disrespect, that's spam.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously a huge fan. What do you guys think of Schoenmaker?
I like him. No, he's in my team.
Yeah,
I'm watching. Get involved at the Phantom SC and of course at HK DOS. Now that man does really need the followers. Just don't call him Chief. 5 names, of course, at Simin_TW.
I mean, people into followers.
Sorry?
I don't really care if I have the followers.
He's going to if you want to stay up to date with what is happening out at Alberton and down at West Lakes at the Crows, follow him now. Big month to come. Obviously, practice games are almost here. Maybe when we're on next, we could have some games, some intel, some data to go over.
Yeah, well, we've got practice matches this Saturday. I think we've got Western Bulldogs and Essendon playing in the afternoon, and then it's the Indigenous All-Stars versus Fremantle that night. So we're going to have at least some footy to talk about and some actual eye tests to go off. So really looking forward to that. There's a bunch of relevant names. So the Phantoms Lair back to regular scheduled programming, I think.
We're back
next week.
Phantom Lair's back. Now, I don't mind the three man set up here in the Lair. I reckon we can advance at the 40 love now to 5 names. He's got an extra point. He's almost put the hipster away. The Lair is back. We're rolling into the important part of SuperCoach pre-season. Of course, codesports.com.au for all your latest news. YouTube, the Code Sports channel to watch this show and every show we've done this pre-season, which is a lot. And, of course, get the podcast, like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast, Chief. Anything else to finish off?
Yeah, look, please leave us a rating and review if you've been enjoying the preseason content. I think, it's been a lot of shows that we've been putting out there, and every little rating and review does help push the show forward and allow us to keep doing it. So really appreciate it.
And if you do refer to Dossie as Chief in the comment, we'll give you a shout out.
Sure.
We'll see you next time on the Lair.
Farewell.